A reading before the sermon. This is The Spirituality of Hospitality, an excerpt from Sister Joan Chittister's book, The Monastery of the Heart, An Invitation to a Meaningful Life. Benedictine spirituality is a sacramental spirituality. It holds all things, the earth and all its goods, as sacred. When Benedict of Nursia began his way of living in wild, licentious 6th century Rome, he turned that world upside down. He took into his monastic community the rich and the poor, the slave and the free, the young and the old, artists and craftsmen, peasants and noblemen. It was a motley crew. And then, as if that weren't enough, he opened the doors of the monastery to anyone who came at any time, to anyone who knocked, no matter who they were or where they had been in life along the way. Great care and concern are to be shown, the rule goes on, in receiving poor people and pilgrims, because in them, more particularly, Jesus is received. The point is clear. The guest to the Benedictine is much more than simply another social contract. Guests, the unknown and the wandering other, are the final and authentic addition to any Benedictine community. Without them, the very notion of Benedictine community is suspect, is nothing but more of the same. Without the guest, we make the community life all about us alone. Families that concentrate only on themselves do not build up the entire human family. The Benedictine, on the other hand, is actually on the lookout for guests, for their needs, for their wisdom. The guest in Benedictine spirituality is a visit from the God of surprises who comes upon us at our most vulnerable and breaks us open to a new part of ourselves as well as to the needs of the other. Guests bring the world in, place it at our feet, and dare us to be who and what we say we are. They are a blatant sign for all to see that any group that calls itself a monastery of the heart, but exists only for itself and its own kind, is really not a real community at all. A monastery of the heart is a community with stretchable, permeable, illimitable boundaries made up of anyone who comes into it at any time, and always saying, we are here for you. When I was in seminary, I was taking a class that required me to attend an event in another faith. Worship services were the most common, but it could be anything, a service or a ceremony. I had settled into one option, but on a whim asked on Facebook if there was anything in particular that I might want to check out. A Lakota man I know, a member of an area UU church, said that he was going to be performing an adoption ceremony in a couple of weeks, and I was welcome to attend. He was actually a little nervous about it, he said, because he had to sort of create it himself, drawing a lot from elder wisdom. The ceremony was a mid-June day, and when I arrived, I was welcomed into the house. There was a smattering of people hanging around outside, leading up the walkway in. I explained to someone that I had been invited by Bruce and was thanked for coming, as if I had been an expected guest and belonged. In anticipation of the ceremony, I had brought tobacco and gave this to someone. People introduced themselves, offered drinks, said where the bathroom was. Essentially everyone there that day was indigenous, other than the young man-to-be adopted's girlfriend and some of his family who were present, and me. It was a First Nations community formed of Lakota, Winnebago, Lakota, Onondaga, and other displaced Indigenous peoples to celebrate and share community together, practicing and honoring their ways. My experience that day as someone who very clearly was an outsider to their cultures, their heritages, to their community, to the family, was also one of true welcome and hospitality. I was never left alone with no one to talk with. I was brought into conversations quickly, conversations about work lives, family lives, about traveling to visit relatives on reservations, and never once felt like I did not belong. Everyone was a participant in the adoption ceremony. A young white-appearing man who had been exploring and learning about his Indigenous heritage, being adopted by the Lakota woman who had become like a second mother to him. Everyone received gifts. We all shared the food people had brought, including many traditional foods, and we celebrated this beautiful event together. I was struck afterward not only by the ceremony, but obviously by the welcome and the hospitality. It was an unexpected gift. The power dynamics of my whiteness and absolute stranger status were of no concern. I was their guest and I was welcome. Not even welcome, I belonged. Their hospitality was in no way pressured. It was seamless and natural. I've heard for years about the fragile art of hospitality, and what I've realized is that hospitality is not such a fragile art unless we're concerned about perhaps disrupting sociocultural norms or the way that we do things here. Hospitality should be about welcome and invitation, a joyful and abundant art and practice. Hospitality is grounded on generosity and love, sharing what we have with others. And it's not just about a generosity of things, of food, gifts, of other material goods. Hospitality is equally grounded, if not more so, on generosity of spirit, of intention and openness and presence. We may have the best coffee hour in the state, but I can assure you that no one is returning if we don't fill them with the spirit of our shared faith. This is one mistake I think our congregations can sometimes make, that we begin to treat our congregations like they're our homes. While our congregation is our spiritual home, it is not our home. Our congregations are comfortable places for us, safe places for us, a respite from the world, but they are a place where our lives intersect in public. Congregations are places with changing faces, people coming, people going, people visiting, people staying. This congregation knows better than some others, with snowbirds and other travelers dropping in and out across the year. Sister Joan writes that this is also true for the Benedictines and offers that spiritual perspective that without the guest, we make the community life all about us alone. Guests bring the world in, place it at our feet, and dare us to be who and what we say we are. Who and what do we say we are? I don't know if you remember the first time you came to church, but it's often a big deal for people. It may take months to work up the courage to enter a space. What are the ways that we honor newcomers' experience of coming here? A few years ago, I read The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, highly recommend. In it, she observes that most event hosts consider the moment the program begins to be the moment when hosting starts. But Parker argues that the moment of invitation is the actual beginning, and therefore when the hosting needs to begin. Among the first questions she asks of any client or anyone who asks for advice for her about gatherings is what she calls the Passover principle. How is this event different from every other? This is a tricky thing to navigate in a church because we do this every week, not every year. Some people do this every year, but that's a different story. And it's okay. But I love the idea of wondering what makes church different from other spaces in our lives. And how can we celebrate that and lift it up? In Parker's book, she tells stories of many events that she's hosted or has attended or knows about. One that caught my attention was a Dîner en Bloc, an event that started in Paris in 1988 when a wealthy entrepreneur returned to the continent after a couple of years of living abroad. There wasn't enough room in his apartment to invite everyone that he wanted to, and so he decided to think creatively about how to invite everyone and create a community. The event was so popular that it has spread across the world with thousands of people participating in events in host cities. There are a lot of rules. You can only wear white head to toe. You have to bring your own table, chairs, picnic basket, tablecloth, napkins, the good ones, fine china, silverware, glassware, and any elements of beauty, all also only in white. Your own meal, handmade, homemade anyway, and fine dining, drinks, only water, white wine and champagne, white of course, and dessert. You must bring a guest. You must remain seated until dinner is over and more. Now people not only attend these events, but also pay to attend these events and do all of this work. After the dinner and dessert, there's usually some kind of entertainment provided before the event closes, and all of the elements disappear with the people who brought them. What is striking about this is the incredible level of investment of the people who attend. Some can spend hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars buying the necessary clothing and accessories, the food, tables, and chairs. And there are more rules that I didn't even get into. So why? Because it's a chance to celebrate something remarkable. The dining venue is not disclosed in advance, but instead there are meeting points that people are shuttled to the actual spot. It's often a place where people are not usually or even ever able to eat, and certainly not on this scale. But the people who participate find it to be the kind of thing that they want to prepare for and celebrate all year long. And they bring all of that excitement with them into the space. I'm sure the venues are spectacular, but what really makes the whole thing special is the joy and energy that the people bring with them. Many of them are primed for the event over the course of months. They are ushered into the experience with fanfare and joy. They are strangers and make an event happen that is to be envied. Good hosting and good hospitality are about giving our attention from the invitation. With a church, that can be a first encounter on a website, with a protest, with a weekly coffee, with a Facebook post, or who knows what else. Parker's whole book still has me wondering about how I and we could apply what she shares in this setting. What if we assume that everyone is making this level of effort to come into our community? Are we matching the level of enthusiasm and excitement they have? Who do we say we are? I know that Florida is an incredibly difficult place to live, and we think of this church as a haven, a sanctuary from that, and it is. But this can also make us more inward looking in many ways, so it's something that we should watch out for. There's a blog post I've seen going around where a couple who attends church regularly says they treat any newcomer who is alone as an emergency, taking priority over friendships and church business. They aren't saying rush the person and overwhelm them, but treat them as a priority from a place of love. Treat them as a priority from a place of joy of our faith. Treat their entry into our sanctuary as if they have the most precious gift to offer us. We, you believe that each person holds keys to knowing and understanding deeply about love and all the wonders and mysteries of living. Perhaps we can learn to offer that as the main dish at our gatherings. May we all be so filled with the gifts of this faith that this faith offers, that we pour it into each other's cups. If you would please rise and lift your voice in song with me for our closing hymn, we are going to sit at the welcome table.